Okay, Coach Patrick from Marathon Nation, home of the Smarter, Faster Runner here, and I'm continuing the Boston Run Project informational video series. And in this segment, we have finally reached the training plan. We're almost there. I'm not going to show you workouts quite yet, but I do want to explain a little bit about how the training plan is written and why this training plan is different than most other plans. Okay, it's fundamentally different because we're working off a deadline. We know that we need to get you as fit as we can as soon as possible. Because of this September registration opens deadline for the Boston Marathon. Given that, there's not a lot of fluff in the training plan. It's assuming that you show up with a certain level of fitness, and we're going to put you through the paces to get you ready. Now, the training plan consists of 4 different blocks 1 through 4. They correspond with your gaps in your fitness, okay? And that was determined earlier in this Boston Run Project series, which is to say that if you have a larger gap of fitness, if you have a level 4 gap, which requires 16 weeks of training, then you've got to do all four blocks of the training plan. If you have a level 3 gap, you need to do 3 weeks of the training plan. If you have a level 2 gap, you need to do at least 2 weeks of the training plan, etc. If you happen to be fortunate enough to have just a level 1 gap, then you're putting in a long run and you're good to go. The more time that the bigger the gap, the more training you need to do. And that is how this plan is written. So most people, when they do a marathon, everyone starts training 16 weeks out, but that may not be the case because of this deadline. You may only have 10 weeks or 12 weeks or 9 weeks to your race. So you can go ahead and start at that week up, open the training plan and jump to that week. That's, if you are 9 weeks out, you're going to start 9 weeks out and set that plan to end on your race day. While you're doing that, if you have questions about how to integrate or get up to speed, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Marathon Nation or on Twitter at twitter.com/Marathon Nation, and I will walk you through. You can ask me a question how you want to adjust it, and I can give you some information there on how to kind of tweak this plan to make sure that it fits your current situation. So we don't have you ramp up too strongly and perhaps risk injury. Now, when you're also thinking about your training plan, there's a couple other key elements of it aside from just the compression nature. One is I mentioned earlier, is the start date. Start date is dictated by the race you've picked, which is dictated by the gap between your current fitness and your Boston qualification fitness. So you've picked that race. So the start date of the plan is then dictated by that race, which is, as I mentioned earlier, dictated by your fitness. So you've already got that date set in stone, okay? So it's not like that's too hard. Let me talk quickly about each block of the training plan, okay? The first block 1, which would be, we'll start furthest away from the race, okay? This is where we do a lot of work on your fast. We have 2 threshold interval runs during the week, and we have 1 hill session. So we get speed work in 2 interval sessions, and we get strength, really speed work in disguise with a hill session. Then we have a long run at sort of an easier pace. Anything extra than that is just easy and stride. So we're working on the speed and strength, okay? Because we're far away. The second block, or rather, weeks 12 to 9, heading towards your race in your training plan. Very similar to the first block, okay? Only difference is the long runs have extended a little bit, and we also have a race simulation run at the end of this block, which is an opportunity for you to go out and kind of run a good portion of a long run at your goal race pace, your goal Boston qualification standard that you determined earlier in this process, okay? Part 3, which is weeks 8 through 5 of your training plan. Now we have 2 long runs a week. They're split up a little bit, so in such that they're not going to cumulatively affect you, but we have 2 quality long runs during the week. The first one is done with 2/3 of it kind of slower than goal pace, about 30 seconds per mile slower than goal pace. So if your goal pace is 8 minutes per mile and you've got a 15-mile run, then 10 miles of that are done at 8:30s, right? Just a little slower than goal pace. And then the last third is run at goal pace. So then you run the final portion of it at 8-minute miles, for example, okay? And then the second long run is done as alternating work, where you're running 1 mile faster than your goal pace and then 1 mile slower than your goal pace. And the point of this run, it's very similar to a fartlek or speed play run, where you have an opportunity to have you focus on different gears and build some good training stress in a way that doesn't overly tax you and stop you from being able to train during the course of your week, okay? There's a race simulation run at the end of this block 3. And there's also, we introduce a little VO2 work, sort of high-end, short speed work around the 5K effort, or slightly faster, that allows us to keep your high-end speed in one consolidated session a week, so we're not doing too much work across the weekend, especially when the long runs go up. And then finally, block 404, the final block. This is weeks 4 to race. We have our final long run, which is key. We go to 2 VO2 sessions during the week, and then anything else is just kind of stride. So we've got a long run during the week where we're putting in some race pace efforts, which is important to kind of keep your what I call needle to the dial, and get familiar with the level of work you're going to need to sustain your qualification effort. We've got 2 VO2 sessions to keep up the sharp end of your speed and your running strength with low time commitment, and then we just have some strides in running form in general. This final block really focuses a lot on just kind of keeping you healthy and keeping you sane as you're kind of dialing in your race, assuming you've been in there. We've got some key workouts which are explained in the guide for you. And the last thing I want to talk about very quickly is the race rehearsal guidance, because you do have 2 race rehearsals in your training plan. And I want us to be very clear that the point of the race rehearsal is to have you test everything as if it is a race. So you would get up, you'd eat as if you were eating before your race, hydrate, etc. You'd go out, you'd run the paces that are dictated in the training plan as best you can, knowing that the beginning of the race, or the beginning of this race simulation run, has some easier miles, followed by bulk of your run at or just faster than goal pace. And the whole time you're running, you are eating and drinking as if you are in a race. So sometimes it's important to set up a loop. I've got an 8-mile loop that I run. For me, I drink half a fuel belt flask in a mile. So I've got 4 flasks on my belt. That's 8 miles. So I get my hydration on that 8-mile loop. I come back, get 4 new bottles, and do it again. And so you can set that up out of your car, or maybe there is another race near you can jump in on, or you've got a family that loves to support you, or crazy running group friends that do it as well. But whatever it is, the race simulation runs are key, because we have our BQ gap. We have your current level of fitness, and we know the delta, we know the gap there, and we know how fast you need to go for race day. And you've been training to those numbers in some shorter workouts, but it's another thing entirely to put that number to the test in the context of a longer workout. So this race simulation run is very critical to give you some true feedback on your current level of fitness and how close you are or are not to being able to sustain this target pace that you've chosen for your Boston qualification effort. If you're not able, we can talk about the outcomes of that run. Again, on Facebook, you can find me on facebook.com/MarathonNation, or on Twitter at twitter.com/MarathonNation. And we can talk a little bit about how to handle the outcomes of your race simulation workout. But know this workout is a chance for you to really put it to the test, see how the paces affect you over time. Anyone can run fast for 2 miles, 4 miles, 8 miles. But to run well for 12 or 14 miles, or in the case of a race simulation run up to 18 miles, that's a different story entirely. And you'll learn a lot about your body and your preparation at this point. So we want to capture it and then drive that into the rest of your training. Okay? This is Coach Patrick from MarathonNation.us, home of the Smarter, Faster Runner. Thank you so much for tuning into the resource series for the Boston Run Project. I don't know if I have another video coming up, but if I do, I'll be back. If not, I will see you on the starting line in April.